Chapter 1. So, on the top you'll find the light. Cherish it, for it will soon be gone, and you'll need to find a brand new fight. The tune had been indistinct for days, coming as gentle as a summer breeze. Whispers blew through rustling leaves, unobtrusive and almost consciously so. Now, Eppie could hear it clearly. Like the simulated wind forced through the orchard every hour, the melody was deliberate, determined. It had wriggled its way deep within the pit of her mind, enveloped every thought until all that was left was a rotten memory. Pressing her hands against her ears proved fruitless. Eppie could resist it no longer. She scribbled the words into her journal to never be forgotten again. So take it, my child, before I too must go, before I must go. A poem? A voice broke the memory. It was Karita Keitel crunching into an apple and peering down over Eppie's shoulder. Eppie shook her head and quelled the compulsion to snap the book shut. A song, she wrote, underneath a sizable space from the lullaby. My mother once sang to me. The sentence almost finished, but her pencil hesitated. From the Muke markets. With Ima? Karita Keitel asked, stopping to pick another apple from a low-hanging branch. The foreman would be none too happy to know the Denusite woman plucked a few to take home with her, but there was no risk of Eppie telling him. Karita Keitel was the closest thing she could haphazardly call a friend. Eppie's answering nod was heavy with shame. Her gaze dragged behind them, between the shade trees and dirt rows stretching on for miles. Perfet Orchard boasted hundreds of workers, but the land was so spanning Eppie hardly saw another soul. When she did, they seemed just as apprehensive to conversation as she was. Here, and only here, did she dare leave home. Going alone to a place as densely populated as the Muke markets was impossible. Sure, she's glad for the help. Karita Keitel smiled sympathetically, when a low rumbling like distant thunder boomed above them. The women stopped in their tracks. Oh, look! It's happening! The sky was setting late that evening. Something demanded the need for daylight. There was much speculation as to the reason while they walked home, but finally the night cycle had come. Eppie craned her head to see over the dense tree branches. Come on, Shorty, Karita Keitel commanded, grabbing her by the hand. Even I can't see from here. High wall's just ahead. Eppie bristled and attempted to scribble down a furious no, but she was pulled onwards to the stone wall before her pencil could meet the page. Her heels and fingers soon dug into the cracked mortar of the facade, hanging on for dear life. Only when the rumbling grew to a gentle trembling did Eppie open her eyes. The world, by appearances, was perfect. Beyond the neat rows of apple trees was a green sea of grazing meadows. Along their invisible border sat towering windmills. At that distance, their slow spinning blades reminded Eppie of white sails, moving ships obscured by trees through the pasture. She took a deep breath, noting the crisp air despite the heat. Sindok's beauty was unparalleled, the view melancholic as if staring at a picture of a memory instead of presently living it. The leaves and apples' colors were a bit too saturated to be real, the grass patchless in the sky, though a lovely light blue, unnaturally cloudless. The true sky, though imperfect and wanting and likely empty, was authentic, and authenticity could not be simulated. Eppie and Karita Keitel sat and waited for just that, the first glimpse of truth in over a decade. A shadow cast across the land in a straight line. The sky split in two like a gigantic opening eyelid, revealing a dark pupil beneath. Eppie's fingers tightened around her pencil as she waited for notes of black and blue. The world's gentle shuddering matched in quickness with her beating heart. Then she saw it, an undeniable shade of brown, sickening, maddening, feces-colored brown. Her breath released. She felt her acidic lunch fill her throat in its place. Sandstorms had always been a part of the weather on the small world Sindok, and the heat-hardy Muke had always been prepared for them. That had changed as most things had after the final removal. The storms were an unrelenting constant now. Someday, Eppie believed, the sky dome would succumb to the constant pelting. Then the storm would swoop in and take them all. Damn, Karita Ketel sighed after a silent moment. I really thought this time. What's the count? Eppie began to write. 3,324 days, but froze at the final number and glanced up from her book. Twigs snapped as footsteps approached. You two! A begotten son emerged from a tree row. From the dense shade, his jeweled armor glittered blindingly in the dying daylight. His arm extended outwards. His blue glass cannon was aimed straight at the two women. Hands, the son shouted. Hands up! You're in a forbidden area. Eppie obeyed without question, her palms flying upwards. Karita Ketel took another bite of her apple, ignoring the command. Get to know a girl before you shoot her, yeah? She said loudly, crunching. We work here, just ask home. Funny. He said all the workers should be home by now. The son cautiously stepped towards them, his arm still raised and blocking his face. Why are you still here? We was just watching the sunset is all. That illegal now, too? Not yet, but you're tempting me. Not unlike your kind to turn silver to shit. His arm quivered slightly with anticipation, or perhaps it was only the gleaming sunlight. Hands up, I said. Your kind? Karita Ketel frowned, once again ignoring his command. You know, the son said, and though Eppie could not see his face, she could hear his sly smirk. Milk monkeys, Damon's drizzle, and you. The cannon pointed directly at Eppie. What the hells are you even supposed to be? Eppie's mouth opened, her lips quivering to respond, but no sound came out. She felt the back of her neck grow moist. Her fingers ached to scribble a desperate, Shut up, to Karita Ketel, but her hands needed to remain raised. She's mute, idiot, Karita Ketel said instead. She can't answer ya. Right convenient excuse. She looks like a child devil if I've ever seen one. You haven't, then. Your brain made of glass, too? She's muke. I'm a doc born and raised. 210% muke. The two looked at Eppie, and even Karita Ketel appeared doubtful. After a confused second, the son spit out a laugh. A muke? Bah, she's so pale I can see the blood run through her from here. Karita Ketel's frown deepened as the man's laughter echoed throughout the orchard. So she don't tan well. So what? She's got nothing to prove to ya. Like hell she does. You paint an ass white, it's suddenly a pony. The glass cannon swung up. Registrations, now. Eppie's arms finally fell to fumble for the registration papers on her person. Nuh-uh. Karita Ketel's strong hand stopped her. You givin' to one demand, you givin' to 20. Her long red braids swung behind her as she looked back at the sun, a whip to keep Eppie still. Go on your way, Boot, and we be on ours. Eppie could cry. Her friend was awfully stubborn, and now doubly so since the man had insulted her. You're listening to your moron friend, then? He asked Eppie. You refuse? She shook her head desperately, then nodded, unsure which would communicate her want to comply. The son, of course, misunderstood. You can live like a muke and die like one just fine, but your papers know the truth. Last chance. The mosaic glass of his hand cannon glittered brilliantly. Eppie froze, awed. How could something that invoked such terror in her be that beautiful? She flinched away, expecting a blast of heat to knock her from the high wall. The gentle simulated breeze, still warm, was the only thing which caressed her. Another set of footsteps, heavy and unsteady, came up from behind the son. Serenade, a deep voice yelled. The son jumped at his name. A second begotten son, a head taller than Serenade, trudged up to the three of them. His armor clinked loudly, angrily, though not loud enough to conceal the curses he grunted. By his great size, it was obvious to Eppie that he was a Bruvam. Serenade, you fool, you've got me plowing through half this wretched orchard looking for you. The Bruvam son looked at Serenade's still raised arm, and swatted it down with a single slap. And stop trying to shoot every civ you meet. Damn it all, if we didn't have our orders, I'd drag you to the barracks myself. But these two really are trouble this time, I know it, Serenade stuttered. I caught them sneaking around, sir, and— Sir? Sir? Look at these hands. Do these working hands look like they belong to a damned officer? the Revam's son roared. He slapped Serenade's helm, nearly knocking him over. And keep this up while you address me, boy. Serenade hurried to raise his visor. Karita Ketel's pointed ears perked up. Wait. Serenade? You're Danae? Serenade's lips pressed almost into a pout. The face that stared back at the two women was an unpleasant one. Like Karita Ketel, he had bright auburn hair, though his locks grew along his cheeks and peeked awkwardly out the sides of his helm. Upturned eyes with silver irises swam in pools of black. Unlike her, his face was perfectly round, although he was not fat. His skin was pockmarked and his complexion inherently red. Epi saw why the man hid under the helm. His looks were comical, yet his features drew together in a severe, zealous glower. A perfect tool for the queen matriarch. Epi couldn't help but feel bad for the man, as being a conscript for the matriarch's army meant absolute conformity. He'd have double to prove as a denoucité, too, their reputation little more than traitors and idle standbys. His hairless tail and bat-like ears were painfully tucked under his armor, and he spoke Chaelian, as all else in the universe did. "You little rat," Karita Ketel gasped. "You shoot your own kin." "Only kin I got is my ma and my matriarch," Serenade spat, the accent he'd been concealing slipping through. "Certain not some two-ration whore." "That's enough out of you." The Revan-begotten son nudged Serenade forward. He looked at the two women with an afterthought. "And you two have best be getting home. There's a Cheo riot up north by the wind farms. There's no telling how far the devils will reach this time." Serenade looked back as he was led by the arm, like a child being dragged home by a parent. "You're letting them go. But they insulted me. They stole." "Thank ya. We'll be right on our way," Karita Ketel said quickly, hiding her bag full of fruit further behind her back. Serenade managed to squirm out of his superior's grip and pointed desperately at Epi. "Look at the small one," he pleaded. "She looks just like one of those devils. A runaway." The mention of a devil was enough to halt things. The Revan-begotten son peered back at Epi, and immediately she filled with cold terror. Epi was not Chael, but was guilty of the offense of merely looking like one. That single questioning stare could mean death. He'd see right through her, surmise exactly who and what she was. Waste. Ironically, their jobs weren't that different. They both searched for and removed the unwanted. She searched for leaves that blistered her fingers as she pulled them from ripening fruit. Water, sunlight, and the right to live were given only to the valuable, and Epi was a drain on their society. "She's missing the horns, but I suppose it couldn't hurt to check her registration," the Brevam's son conceded. "All right, White Mane. Come down and let's see your papers." Epi's throat tightened. Her papers were fake, and anyone with an eye for authenticity would know it. Her fingers, thick and clumsy with sweat, flitted to pull them out from her pocket and smooth them. As she leaned forward and reached to hand them away, she considered making a run for it. But she couldn't hope to outrun their cannons. "We should check the big ones, too," Serenade added, with a salivating smile. "She might not be a devil, but I'd bet on my ma she's been rammed by one." That was the final straw. Karita Ketel looked at the apple in her hand, gritted her teeth, and launched it at him. It hit his head with a dull thunk, and the young man staggered back. Karita Ketel wasted no time. She swung her legs over the wall, grabbed Epi by the waist, and dropped forward. The two women fell into the brush with a rustling thud. Following them by a hair came a blast from Serenade's arm cannon, a flash of incinerating heat flying just past their heads. A sweet, smoky odor filled the air. A tree behind the high wall had been hit, its leaves burning in a small but growing blaze. The high drop was of no consequence. The women clambered up onto their feet and burst out into a sprint. Shouts proceeded behind them, mostly the Brevam's son yelling at Serenade for starting a fire. They tore through overgrowth, branches snapping and snagging against their linen blouses. When they at last broke out into the clear dirt road, their farm uniforms were tattered and torn. A long rip lay along the left side of Epi's cropped pants, the flesh beneath scraped and bloody. Eppie took a desperate gulp of air and bent over, panting. For a few more seconds the women caught their breath. The dirt road was empty and quiet except for the soft chirping of birds. Then there came a breathy string of laughter, choking on the lack of air. You saw how it bounced off his big head, Karita Ketel managed between a fit of giggling. Eppie pressed her hand over her heart, feeling it thump like a war drum. She shot her friend an angry look. It's fine. If they really cared, they'd have caught up by now. Karita Ketel waved her off. Sides, they got that riot to worry about, yeah? At that moment a loud siren sounded, and Karita Ketel silenced. It mimicked a town bell's ringing, though the nearest domicile was near a mile away, and no true brick and metal bell would be used regardless. A voice, matronly and rich, began to broadcast. It was commanding enough to demand one's attention, but still soft as if soothing a child. Naturally it blended with the chirping birds and delicate ambience of provincial affairs forest. My children, the matriarch began, as dusk falls, so too does the rebellion. The horns of discordance sound no longer. Eppie allowed herself to breathe. This alarm was not for them. She patted herself down, checking that her notebook and fake papers were somehow still on her person. My sons fought valiantly, the matriarch went on, and the villains most foully. Nonetheless, they have and will be dealt with. It's over, Karita Ketel whispered. She grabbed Eppie's hand, her own trembling. Imma's still having us, yeah? Eppie nodded. The orchard's excitement waned, and previously planned engagements refocused into memory. It was her founding day, and as tradition, her adoptive mother Imma prepared a fine meal. Karita Ketel sniffed herself. A wash first. We both smell hideous. I would call an assembly for the next morn, the matriarch droned on as the women hurried home. I ask that you all make preparations for the journey to your... As such, a rest day for the non-essential has been. The matriarch's declaration pushed to the back of their hungry minds, along with the lullaby. The communal baths of Ophir were an occasional excursion Eppie avoided for as long as she could. A sink bath was unglamorous but sufficient. It afforded privacy and safety not guaranteed at the communal ones. They were bouvard in design and old world in charm, and the crowds, Eppie figured, were intrinsic to the old world too. That evening, however, few patrons frequented the baths. She heard a soft murmur of only a handful of conversations being had. They were quiet enough that the occasional patter of wet feet walking across stone or the splash of disturbed water kept them local and private. The Chale uprising must have scared most people home, Eppie concluded, and perhaps she ought to as well. The sooner they left Ophir, the better. She and Karita Ketel took to an empty pool and disrobed. The wound on Eppie's leg stung as she lowered herself into the hot water. There was a time when even the water stirred up feelings of uneasiness in her. Her mother had told stories of entire civilizations being swallowed up in an instant, of unknown horrors lurking beneath black depths. The baths of Ophir were hardly anything of the sort. Still, Eppie never waded into the deep end, just far enough to cover her breast. Karita Ketel backstroked through a mist cloud further into the pool. Eppie averted her eyes, terribly jealous. Her admirable qualities would not fill up a single hand count. Most notable was her ability to write incredibly quickly while maintaining a legible hand, and a propensity to fade into the background amidst more interesting company. Karita Ketel was the extreme polar opposite. She was hardy yet lovely to look at, courageous to a fault, and most of all blissfully ignorant. The world was a dangerous place, Eppie's mother had taught her, and to know such was to live it. There wasn't a second where her impending death did not cross her mind. Eppie stared down at her murky reflection in the pool's water. She was unknown even to herself. She held a contradictory fear almost as great as her fear of death. To die forgotten was almost as if she'd never lived at all. Akin to the profound tragedy of an unmarked grave, remains forever unidentified. Eppie sighed and splashed water over herself. It was quite obvious to anyone that she was nothing near resembling a muke. But if not Muke, then what was she? She glanced at Karita Ketal nearby, now pouring water over her suds-covered head. The Dunusite woman was the last of her clan, Ketal. But at least she knew who she was. Epi hadn't even a clue what she was. While the lowlander Muke did have white hair as she did, her skin was as pale and stark as milk. She was short like the mainlanders, though her build was weak and thin. A frail constitution and rodent-like mannerisms made it seem she'd scurry off any moment. Her blood-red irises were off-putting, nothing like the luminous emerald green of Ima. Her hand idly brushed over her forehead, her scar, as she wiped off her face. The pink wound was hidden by her short bangs, the healed skin smooth and poreless to the touch. The cut had been clean, man-made. Suddenly, her heart began to pound. The image of a dead woman took the place of her reflection, staring back at Epi with half-shut eyelids. There was no iris, no pupil. They'd sunken down into the whites of her eyes. Even in death, her mother had been frighteningly beautiful. The delicate snow white of her hair was stained red from the blood trailing from her forehead. The blood lines traced over her eyes like tears, down to perfect pink lips which gaped open. Epi stared at the black expanse within her maw, waiting for words to croak out once more. "Run, Epelola, run!" the white eyes screamed. Epi's own blood ran cold in the humid baths. She was a child again, hiding from the soldier who'd killed her mother. The sight of her laying dead and motionless on the floor froze Epi to the spot. The girl's lungs ached to cry out for her mother, but she only sat still. She couldn't move, she couldn't speak, or else the tall soldier would get her, too. He was looking for her, even now, searching for the loose thread that had managed to unravel from his grasp. "You think Ima knows that song you was singing?" Epi broke from her vision. Water splashed as Karita Ketal swam up to her. Epi did not respond, a shaking hand still pressed against her forehead. Her mother had commanded her to silence then. So piercing was the sight, it had stolen Epi's voice forever. Thanks so much for listening. I'll be uploading chapter 2 soon. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you.